Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Sirhan on X, coming to you live from Cincinnati, Ohio, out in the United States of America, in the Eastern Atlantic time zone, and hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 11th of July 2025. Lots to get to tonight due to circumstances between last night and tonight. Gonna put the two together, so I'm gonna have one big show. But the last 30 minutes will be devoted to a wild night at Madison Square Garden. I will get to that in the end. Of course, the big fight later tonight is, of course, the third meeting between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. All I got to say is may the best fighter win, because I love the heck out of both of them. Let's go ahead and get right down to it. Let's start off with some NFL. It was ruled earlier today that yesterday, that the NFL and the NFL Players Association quietly agreed to some form of a confidentiality deal that hid the outcome of the grievance that was found by an arbitrator 6 months ago. You guys know the story. They colluded about fully guaranteed contracts years before in the lieu of what happened with the Deshaun Watson Cleveland Browns deal. And so what we had as a result was basically apparently Roger Goodell told the NFL owners to cut down on the guaranteed contracts simply because of what happened with Deshaun Watson. And we know the story with that. The 3 first-round draft picks, fully guaranteed $230 million in the middle of the wild stuff that he had going on off the field. We all know what that was. Question I have is, why the heck you want to collude against some of these other guys when everyone knows what the Cleveland Browns did was a case of the exception and not the rule? I mean, I get it. More players were going to be involved in, or at least tried to get fully guaranteed contracts after that. Top ones being Lamar Jackson in Baltimore and Joe Burrow in Cincinnati. We know that they eventually got their contracts. They got paid. I mean, what more can you say? But anybody remember what happened after the Browns fiasco? Ravens then owner Steve Bisciotti came out and made the comment saying this is not what the NFL owners want to do. But I guess what was later revealed in all of this was that not only did they collude to hide the results, the member of the NFLPA known as Lloyd Howell Jr. decided to be partaking in the confidentiality agreement that kept the details of a ruling that took place 2 weeks before this, and it was a 61-page ruling that was on somebody's podcast that was revealed. Basically, the key component of this was Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. As we know, Lamar Jackson was a marquee free agent at the time when it happened, because he was, if Baltimore gave him the exclusive franchise tag, meaning someone would have to offer a contract. Baltimore had the right to match, and they didn't match. Someone would have to give Baltimore 2 first-round draft picks. But apparently it comes out that everyone colluded on this, and as a result of the collusion, that's why we had what we had with this, and that's why the ruling took place. And now, not only that, nobody told the players that this happened, and as a result, now there's backlash within the NFL, and especially in the Players Union, led by, of course, Lloyd Howell Jr., who basically agreed with the NFL to keep the confidentiality secret of the arbitration agreement that took place January 14th. Why would you alienate the players you represent like this? That's something I just can't get my head around. I can't wrap my head around it. Why would you alienate your players like this? It's like in a workplace where you have a management team who keeps things hidden from you, the workers, and basically your direct entry-level frontline supervisors hiding information that could be relevant to them, but they want to hide it from them basically as a way to push aside the workforce that you are with and what you represent. That is what we had here with the NFL and the NFLPA. And as a result, now we have this. And it's a bad look all the way around for the entire NFL when this happened, simply because when you see this, it's just terrible. I mean, a lot of players were going to want fully guaranteed contracts. We're probably going to get to that point sometime in the NFL. Everyone knows this. I mean, of course, what happened after all of this was Jalen Hurts got a contract. Then, of course, went to Lamar Jackson, to Justin Herbert, to Joe Burrow, to Jordan Love, and recently Brock Purdy. Now C.J. Stroud's going to get his. Josh Allen, I believe, got a new contract in there. And I know Patrick Mahomes was in discussion with some form of another restructure is going to bump his pay into the same category as a bunch of those guys. Of course, in the middle, Dak Prescott in Dallas. But what kind of an NFLPA are you? I remind me of what Gene Upshaw was way back when with those guys. Anyone knows the NFL back then knows how the players felt about how Gene Upshaw threw them under the bus on many of occasions. This is a terrible, terrible look at what the NFL and the NFLPA did. Now, it turns out they filed an appeal 6 months after the ruling was filed. But when asked about it, no one wanted to answer. Why? Simply because nobody in the NFL or the NFLPA wants to confront the details about this and give an answer. I mean, they filed the appeal. Are they filing the appeal because they have a case, or are they filing the appeal to buy time for something else? Whatever it is, it's a bad look for the NFL, and it is terrible. I mean, as Charles Barkley would say, terrible. It's that times about 10 million. How do you alienate your players that you're supposed to represent in all of this? I mean, you're supposed to be representing these guys. Shame on you, Mark Lloyd Howell Jr. You're just a walking disgrace right now. Terrible. Now to a show I watched last night. This was on the X platform. As we know, everybody knows I am not the biggest fan of our fan base here in Cincinnati when it comes to the Bengals super fans, especially one individual named Zim. We know he's a degrading coward. Everyone in the X platform knows this. Everyone on the social media platforms know this, especially those in Baltimore, Kansas City, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, and among many other teams. I would say Cleveland, but Cleveland has their own and called Nick Carnes, who's a coward himself, but another topic for another day. But back to this. It's bad enough he was doing this, but it's even worse. You wanted to bring in a character named Warren Sharp on the show. You know, the Barney Miller-looking reject with the 1980s porn stash that reads off teleprompters just as much, if not more, than Joe Biden ever did during his presidential term. That's how bad Warren Sharp is. I guess they feel the need to defend the team's 9-8 record last season and try to use every excuse in the book to why they didn't make the playoffs. Let me answer this for you. You have a star quarterback and 2-star wide receivers. You're paying an excess of $600 or close to an excess of $600 million from the start of 2023, which is when Burrow signed his contract extension, till the end of the decade when all three contracts are basically off the books. They basically weren't good enough to get it done last season. I don't want to hear about a bad defense. I don't want to hear about a bad offensive line. Because I've seen great quarterbacks with bad offensive lines and bad defenses have deep playoff runs and even make Super Bowl appearances. And I'll say maybe in the case of, I want to say one case, I can't remember off the top of my head, actually win it. I would say one of the 2 Super Bowls of Eli Manning when he beat Tom Brady. I mean, I've seen Dan Marino carry the 4th worst defense, especially when it comes to rush defense, to a Super Bowl appearance in '84, losing to Joe Montana and the 49ers. I've seen Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady lead bad defenses to AFC Championship game appearances and Super Bowl appearances. Same with Peyton Manning. The question I have with this is, why in the world do you feel the need to defend a 9-8 season with a 4th place schedule? That's what everyone misses. You was 9-8 with a 4th place schedule. You had everybody healthy. No, I don't want to hear about a bad defense, because that's what they're trying to use an excuse for. Bring in the list of all the bad quarterbacks they had to go up against last season. I mean, I can't think of all the top of my aim. I mean, Dorian Thompson, whatever, the guy in Cleveland, played him twice. Of course, Jacoby Brissett, who went into New England, went to Cincinnati and beat the Bengals week 1. Desmond Ridder, the list goes on and on. We're not talking about the elite guys like Mahomes, Lamar Jackson twice, Justin Herbert, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, and Bo Nix, who those guys they went up against. Actually throwing there Russell Wilson twice, who's not the Russell Wilson from his Seattle years. We all know that. But we saw what happened in the first of those 2 meetings. He looked like the Seattle Russell Wilson destroying the Bengals. I sit here and watch this show and watch them just make fools of themselves, because it's the epitome of what the Bengals fan base is all about. And I say this simply because anyone knows me, knows I can take any kind of pushback from anyone. But when it comes to trying to push back to someone like Zim, he loves to resort to the block button. And that's why he won't come at me, because that's who he is. I said all along, if you're going to make the investment you made in 3 players, it's all on them now. It's not about a bad defense. It's not about a bad offensive line. Those excuses are out the window. Those 3 weren't good enough to make the playoffs last season. I don't want to hear any excuses about a bad defense. And for Warren Sharp to stoop to that low to be on his show with that 80s looking porn stash looking like a reject of Barney Miller, actually Hal Linder, of Barney Miller, the star of that show, and basically reading teleprompters on his X platforms worse than Joe Biden ever did. And for him to go on that show to make a fool of himself just to please Zim says a lot about who Warren Sharp is at the end of the day. Now, I can to give him his credibility, which I will not anymore. Why? Because he resorted to this low, stooped to this low, go on some show that's hosted by a phony in Cincinnati, which is Zim, and basically make a fool out of himself wearing that 80s porn stash that he's just afraid to shave off. I mean, what am I going to get out of this? I mean, we get it. You trying to defend the play of the Bengals last season. But it's one thing to defend the play. It's another thing to make excuses. And you guys are making every cowardly excuse imaginable as to why you missed the playoffs last season. You missed it because your quarterback and your two-star wide receivers, the three you're paying a combined $600 million to the end of the decade, wasn't good enough to get the job done. That's the answer. Not a bad defense, not a bad offensive line, because I'm not hearing it. I mean, you want to put these three in upper tier conversations, especially the quarterback, in the same breath as Mahomes, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, shut up and make the playoffs. That's what it comes down to. And don't just be one and done. Actually go in there and do something. Because what you did in 21 and 22 is officially irrelevant. Actually, the only reason why those happened was because Lamar Jackson wasn't there for the Baltimore Ravens. He got hurt. And ever since he came back, you haven't beaten the Baltimore Ravens. Why don't you focus on that first instead of making excuses? Because everybody in Cincinnati makes excuses after excuse after excuse after excuse when it comes to why they missed the playoffs. Take your L's like men and just forget about it. Actually, instead of making shows like this as to why you wanted to make excuses and defend your quarterback, which he has no room to be defended, why don't you focus on a real issue, which is you have a top 5 edge rusher who needs to be paid. And since you guys like to use your platforms to talk about paying players' contracts, why don't you shut up and quit making shows, quit inviting porn stash rejects like Warren Sharp to your show, and basically come up with a solution to have Trey Hendrickson paid. That should be what your focus should be on. And because you guys don't focus on that, that's the problem. I will touch more on this as we get closer to training camp because I have an itch. This thing is going to roll over into there. And everyone in Cincinnati just want to act like they give a darn when they don't. Because they really don't. Why do I say this? Because they're all, as they say here in Cincinnati, they're all about winning arguments. They're not about winning football games or anything else. They're also about trying to put their players in conversations that they don't have any business being in. They act like watching the show quarterback thinks Joe Burrow is in the same stratosphere. Actually, some think he's in the same stratosphere as Tom Brady, Dan Marino, and Joe Montana. Somebody in Cincinnati better explain that one without looking like a fool, because that's what a lot of you guys do right now. I mean, it's not a knock on Joe Burrow, but there's a different level to all-time greatness, and we talk about Joe Montana, Dan Marino, and Tom Brady. No way is he in that conversation, because all he had is one deep playoff run and a mini playoff run, and that was about it. So that is how we go. Shout out Jason Sweet. I see you out here. Hope you're doing good out there in Pennsylvania. Now to the better part of Cincinnati, and it's going to take place tomorrow night. Unfortunately, I won't be there, but I'll be tuning in. It is the Hell is Real showdown between the Columbus Crew and FC Cincinnati. For those of you outside Ohio, it's the Interstate 71 showdown. It's like a 2-hour separation from Cincinnati to Columbus, roughly, I think, around that ballpark. But I'm calling this for FC Cincinnati. You're rolling right now. You're rolling right now. And when you're rolling right now, you want to have all the momentum, and you have it. You're facing a team that's been a thorn on your side. Actually, who can forget what happened 2 years ago when they came to the conference championship, when they went to TQL Stadium in Cincinnati and knocked you out of the playoffs. Here's your chance as you're rolling to right that wrong against a very darn good Columbus team who that year won the entire thing. Of course, Cincinnati in 2023 won the Supporters Shield for the best team of the regular season. At least that Cincinnati team did something. I've said this for about all you guys related to FC Cincinnati, the people that work there, great people. The atmosphere, terrific atmosphere. all the people that run the social media platforms. Let's go to the next level, because when you guys are rocking over there at TQL Stadium and you guys are winning, you're the real talk of the town, and you light up Cincinnati in ways that the Bengals and the Reds can't. Why? Because you guys have a better passion and you guys have a better care for your team, and at least let the players play without making excuses like Bengals fans do. And you have players who have a deep passion in their heart that oozes out to TQL Stadium and produces an electricity in Cincinnati that hasn't been seen since the Reds won the World Series in 1990. Yes, it's been that long. And no, I'm not giving credit to the Bengals' 2021 Super Bowl run, because that was basically an aberration. But this Saturday, tomorrow night, TQL Stadium, you have a golden opportunity in basically the premier state rivalry in all of sports right now, which is hell is real, when you've had the Columbus Crew coming into town. You remember what happened 2 years ago when they came into town in the playoffs? They knocked you out. Granted, you're not going to change history. We all know this. But it's a chance for you to show the world how legit you are. You're rolling. You have the best record in soccer. Get out there, handle business against the Columbus Crew, send them back to Columbus crying, and basically send them over there and keep them over there so they can never come back to Cincinnati ever again. Because you guys are rolling. Evander's just been a goal machine as of late. I mean, 6 goals in the last five games. I think 5 in the last 3. A couple of those, he had 2 goal games. Devin Denke's coming on. And, of course, you have the standout Roman Celentano as a goalkeeper who's done a magnificent job protecting the goal. You have a chance to do something special tomorrow night. I mean, Cincinnati's going to be electric like none other. Feed off the electricity. Get out there. Rack up a W, and let's move on, because we have a chance to do something significant now. I mean, last time it was significant was 2 years ago when you won the Supporters Shield. You have a chance to really do something better. Get the W Saturday night, because when I come back Monday night, I want to celebrate it on this show with you guys. I mean, I won't be able to be there due to a commitment I have to honor tomorrow at my line of work. But I will be tuning in, and I'll be cheering like you guys will be over there at TQL Stadium. Let's get the W. Let's send the guys back to Columbus so they can stay in Columbus and never come to Cincinnati ever again. Get the job done. I have faith in you. I think the FC Cincinnati faithful has faith in you. You're rolling. You're cooking. Keep the momentum going. Never thought I would have a show where I devoted passion to soccer. But as I said, unlike Reds and Bengals fans, who are just the biggest group of cowards walking God's green earth right now, you talk about FC Cincinnati fans, it's a whole different ball club, a whole different atmosphere. Pure passion, pure love, the electricity from the crowd to the players and vice versa, especially at TQL Stadium, second to none. I mean, I'm not going to compare it to the Euro Cup, the World Cup, or the CONCACAF Gold Cup, or whatever all those international things have, but it has an international-like feel, because there's a lot of international flavor that goes to TQL Stadium and basically uplifts FC Cincinnati soccer. And do that tomorrow night. I'll be tuning in. Now to some UFC. And I watched this the other day, and I still can't believe it. This was none other than this Dana White basically caught on audio after Khabib smashed Conor McGregor. We know the story about that one. When Khabib handled Conor McGregor in 2 rounds, to retain the world title. We know what happens, when you retain the title or win the title at the UFC. You're supposed to have the belt wrapped around you. Dana White, the coward that he is, refused to wrap the belt around Khabib because he feared that people were going to be throwing things at Khabib. But Khabib didn't care. Why? Because he got what he wanted. He wanted Conor McGregor in there for the cowardice that Conor McGregor showed in the pre-fight. You saw the video and audio when that came out, when Conor wanted to have the brakes beaten off of him, and Khabib did that. And basically, you can see it. I mean, basically, the first words of the first round of that fight were, hey, you want to talk now? Pins him in the octagon, punches a fist through the guard of Conor McGregor. Question I have is, why in the world would you care if some things were thrown at Khabib when Khabib was a right winner without any kind of controversy because he just beat the bejesus out of Conor McGregor. The only thing he didn't do is kill the guy. But somebody explain to me why in the world would you, if I could put this in the correct sense, do this at a real big event that was basically everyone was watching, the world was watching because it was real hyped at the time. Let me remind you, this is the same Dana White who was caught on audio putting his hands on a woman. That's number one. Number two, this is the same Dana White who backs John Jones, and we know what just happened to John Jones and basically the storyline of John Jones' career and life. And we know this guy's been a Conor McGregor backer. So maybe, as much as you want to try to defend Dana White, you can't anymore. I mean, for him to do this and not give Khabib his moment in the sun when he wanted to basically beat down and break every bone on Conor McGregor's face, and he darn near did it. And for you not to let him have his moment of glory in the octagon when he earned it and deserved it, it says a lot about who Dana White is at the end of the day. And he is one big, useless, bald-head, skin-headed coward. Period. Maybe his feelings were hurt that Khabib beat the brakes off of his boy McGregor. I mean, the only thing he didn't do was kill the guy, which I wish he did, because Conor McGregor deserved it. We know McGregor is a racist and a rapist coward himself. But if you're not going to reward the guy his championship the right way, what does it say about you? Now, this is not, we're talking about what happened in 1980 when Marvin Hagler won the title from Alimentar, England. That's a whole different story. Khabib earned that championship because he won it the right way, and it was his belt. He was a defending champ. He retained his title. He earned the right to have the belt around his waist in the octagon. Didn't matter if the audience wanted to throw heat-seeking missiles, or didn't want to throw toilet bowls. Didn't matter if they throw beer cans. Doesn't matter if they want to throw the ceiling lights or basically the signs of the stadium at him. It doesn't matter. Point is, he retained his championship. He should have had the belt around his waist in that octagon. Boy, what a coward Dana White is. I mean, the guy already defends John Jones, and we know what John Jones has done, and we saw what he did to that woman several years back on our video. Poor Khabib. I mean, everyone still nitpicks that victory over McGregor. Point is, they can fight 20 times. The same result is going to happen. Conor McGregor was never in Khabib's league, period. It doesn't matter. The Conor McGregor fans, the biggest group of morons and cowards walking Ireland and some of the states also who are rooting for him, are every bit as bad as him because they don't get it. Crazy. You win the championship, or you defend the championship. Belt should be around your waist. I mean, they could take a heat-seeking missile, blow up the building, and have the bricks laying on your head, but it doesn't matter. You still should have the belt around your waist when you have the belt won. And Khabib should have had the belt around his waist, and it said a lot about who Dana White is. Now to the world of boxing. And two guys made fool of themselves this week. Well, let's start with the first one. It's Shakur Stevenson. Excuse my language. I don't like to curse on the show, but I'm going to translate that the way I understood it. He came out and called Sugar Ray Robinson an ass. He says he's not a top 5 all-time pound-for-pound great, and he's basically an ass. I don't know what you do in your off time, son, but I think you need to get detox for whatever you're snorting over there for you to make that kind of a comment. Because right now, the boxing intelligentsia just despise a dog, you know what, out of you. For you to call Sugar Ray Robinson a top 5 all-time great, maybe let's put it this way, forget top 5 all-time great. Unanimously across, or virtually close to unanimously across, as the greatest pound-for-pound fighter of all time, an ass. How can you explain yourself? No, I don't want to hear about you saying you were talking expletive as you did at the press conference. You knew what you was doing all along. You better hope you have a Sugar Ray Robinson-like performance against William Zepeda tomorrow night. And you better hope it's Sugar Ray Robinson-esque. Because guess who's going to be the ass at the end of the day when it's not? It ain't going to be Sugar Ray Robinson. It's going to be you. Because you haven't had an impressive performance since you polished Oscar Valdez, and you use cowardly excuses as to why you were not half as impressive ever since. I mean, real cowardly excuses. And in my nose, I've been in the fight game. I hear and see cowardly excuses from fighters all over the place. He's no different. I mean, the way he looked against Dos Santos, the way he looked at a subsequent fight where he had people leaving the arena by the 5th or 6th round. He got a knockout win over an opponent who had no business actually fighting in any fight. And now he gets William Zepeda tomorrow night. You better have his Sugar Ray Robinson-esque performance against Zepeda, because otherwise you're the ass. Because if you're going to call it like that, an all-time great, widely regarded the greatest ever, an ass, you better look better than an ass when you beat William Zepeda. And it better not be a decision either. I mean, you better obliterate Zepeda the way Sugar Ray Robinson used to obliterate Jake LaMotta, among many others. Because if you don't, it's a bad look for you at the end of the day. Good luck tomorrow night. And another one, this one I want to say I'm surprised, but then again, I'm not. It's the Haneys again. It's Devin and Bill Haney feeling the need to manipulate and start stuff with, of all people, Brian Norman Jr., who's a stand-up guy and wants all the smoke. And he did it again today at the official press conference where he put his hands on Norman Jr. unnecessarily. I try to defend you after the whole Ryan Garcia fiasco because we know what happened there. I mean, Ryan Garcia tested 3 times positive for whatever the frick he tested positive for. And you danced at a bowling at Bowe Alley after you heard the official result that the decision was overturned and you were about having that O on your record. And now you're going to be in the fight against a guy who just smashed Yin Sasaki in his own backyard not too long ago for a big welterweight showdown. That's how you're going to carry yourself against a guy like Brian Norman Jr.? Don't think he's not ready. This is a moment he's wanted. I mean, we all know Tio Lopez ducked him because Tio Lopez is a coward. Now you couldn't get the Garcia rematch because Garcia made a fool of himself against Rolly Romero, and now you get this, and you make a fool out of yourself, and an opportunity you should be thankful for because no one's given it to you. Congratulations. You made yourself every bit, excuse the language again, every bit the ass Shakur Stevenson did when he called Sugar Ray Robinson an ass. And you made yourself look like a bad one. You and Bill Haney. And we know how bad Bill Haney is. Bill Haney is just a senile moron. But when it comes to this fight coming up in November, good luck. Because you ran like a coward in your last fight on the Garcia Romero undercard. Can't think of the opponent's name at the moment, but you ran like a coward. You was afraid to throw punches. And you're going to face a man who basically nobody wants to touch right now. I'll give you credit. You want the smoke with this guy, with Brian Norman Jr., who's on the come up. We know Norman Jr. is on the come up. We know maybe you can say Haney's plateaued a little bit. But I won't be surprised if Haney has a turn back performance. But good luck against this guy. And if you're going to act like that against Brian Norman Jr., I'll just go to some place, some church or whatever, and pray for you because you're going to get what you deserve. And Brian Norman Jr. will paste you. I mean, if you can't block a left hook, and it was a left hook that knocked out Sasaki by Norman Jr., good luck. I mean, I try to be a fan of yours, but that action you had yesterday and today toward Norman Jr., who's a stand-up guy, speaks to why you and your father, Bill Haney, are the 2 biggest cowards in the boxing community right now. Period. Now to the historical perspective, and we're going to go back about 71 years, 73 years to 1951. This took place at Earls Court in London, England. This is for you English followers out there who's watching across the pond, because this is for you. We have a long laundry list of fighters in the boxing community like Lennox Lewis, Bob Fitzsimmons from that country. But maybe the biggest win in the history of that country from a fighter from that country in London, in England, was when Randy Turpin, a 4-1 underdog, upset Sugar Ray Robinson. This was the middle of Ray Robinson's world tour. I mean, he toured all over Europe. Then he concludes it in England in the backyard of a tough, durable challenger, Randy Turpin. Very, very tough, very rugged. And in this particular fight, he basically outworked Sugar Ray Robinson, beat him up a little bit. We consider the fact that he gave Robinson a couple cuts and a couple of gashes to win the undisputed middleweight championship in his own home country of London, England, by a unanimous decision. Actually, one of the sort of the controversies of this was the referee who scored the fight. His scorecard wasn't read, but the feeling was all the press writers and everyone who saw it had it in the 9-4 to 9-5-1 range for Turpin. It was a case where Sugar Ray Robinson's star power, took over London, but Randy Turpin was ready for the challenge. And it was probably the biggest win of Turpin's career, a real standout fighter during those times. Very rough, very rugged. And actually, for a middleweight at that time, had a decent physique. And that's what we had with this. And Randy Turpin got the unanimous decision win over the tough and durable Sugar Ray Robinson in a tough fight. Basically, Robinson in this fight was on a winning streak of 89 straight and 55 knockouts with 2 draws. Went into this fight with a record of 129-1-2 against a Randy Turpin who was 42-1, and Robinson was a 4-1 favorite, and basically shocked by Randy Turpin in London. London's had their own share of terrific fighters from that country. I mean, the top of the food chain is still going to be Lennox Lewis. Other guys like Bob Fitzsimmons, Carl Froch, Frank Bruno, among many others. But when you talk about the biggest win of all the English fighters in that particular country, number one is more than likely what Randy Turpin did to Ray Robinson, because it was a shocker. I mean, only the second loss of Ray Robinson's career in 135 fights. Think about it. He had 133 fights, had 133 fights, and that was only the second loss of his career at that time. That says a lot about the greatness of Sugar Ray Robinson. But yes, Shakur Stevenson wants to call him an ass. But of course, with this one, a rematch took place 4 months later in New York City, where basically, again, Turpin gave Ray Robinson all he can handle, but Robinson found himself and basically stopped Turpin in the 10th round to regain the middleweight championship, pretty much stamping his case among many times he's done it as the greatest fighter in the world, pound for pound. But Randy Turpin, a standout fighter out of London, solid physique, strong and durable, outworked Sugar Ray Robinson, and probably the greatest win in British boxing history to upset Ray Robinson to win the undisputed middleweight championship. It took place 74 years ago at Earls Court in London, England. That's for you guys over there overseas. Now to another one. And this one was actually a couple days late on this one. But everyone knows just how big ESPN was with the top-ranked boxing series. And when it came out way back when. Maybe the greatest fight of that series took place when, 4 decades ago, when John LiCicero and Caveman Lee just let it all hang out. Story of this one was, of course, the first couple rounds. LiCicero and Lee were basically in a sort of a chess match. Looked like it wasn't going to amount to anything. We fast forward a little bit. Lee starts to take control with his jab. Remember, Lee's coming off the one-round obliteration of Marcus Horado, who fought both Marvin Hagler and Tommy Hearns at one point. But as the 4th round came on, the overhand right and the right-hand uppercut by LiCicero, and Caveman Lee is in a world of trouble. And now, guess who's teeing off? LiCicero. And in this particular fight, when you consider that LiCicero looked like he had control and was going to win by knockout, this is why you always keep your guard up even when you're ahead, because one punch can turn it around in a minute, and boy, did it. Because we fast forward to the 5th round of this fight, and Lee's in real trouble, pinned against the ropes, but you can start to sense a little bit that LiCicero is starting to punch himself out a little bit. And as LiCicero pins him in the corner, makes the mistake, the perfectly placed counter left hook on the chin of LiCicero, and LiCicero's down and out for the count, and Caveman Lee is the winner. And Caveman Lee, LiCicero, you want to watch a fight where basically guys are just swinging the fists away? That's what we had here. I mean, this is way before we had a fight on ESPN in 2001 between Mickey Ward and Emmanuel Augustus. I mean, this was a botched version of this, and both guys were just letting the fists go. I mean, that's what you wanted to see on the free TV networks on ESPN back then. I mean, no one's going to mistake LiCicero and Caveman Lee for the second coming of Marvin Hagler or Sugar Ray Leonard, but they put on a dazzling show, and basically both guys just let it all hang out for those 5 rounds till that left hook just pasted and took out for good the one LiCicero, and that was all she wrote. Solid win for Caveman Lee, by the way. Once fought Marvin Hagler for the world middleweight title. So, both guys were solid fighters, but this was Lee's probably his moment in the sun. I encourage everyone to watch this fight if you like to watch a fight where fighters are just throwing fists just for the sake of it, because that's what Caveman Lee and John LiCicero did on that ESPN Classic. Even the great Al Bernstein, who called the fight, said he'd never seen anything like it. It was just a wild, wild affair. And another one that took place a few years later on free TV on CBS. We're going to go south of the featherweight division. And we don't talk about these guys much, but the guy I'm going to bring up was a thing of beauty. Before we had guys like Roman Chocolatito Gonzalez, Nonito Donaire, among many others, there was a standout from Laredo, Texas by the name of Orlando Canizales. Just a thing of beauty all the way around is his footwork, his technique, his chin. And in this night, he used it all to perfection when he just dominated, broke down, and knocked out a tough world champion in Kelvin Seabrooks to win the bantamweight championship. Historical significance of this, it started a 6-year run for Canizales as the bantamweight champ with 16 successful title defenses, including a rematch 2 fights later, where he did the same thing. But we talk about fighters that are a beauty to watch. And we can coin this phrase, beautiful fighter, all the time. For that era, if you want a tutorial on how to use a footwork, combination punching, and using the jab, watch Orlando Canizales. Because that's what he was. A thing of beauty, the closest thing to perfection at that time when you talk about Orlando Canizales. And what he did at Kelvin Seabrooks, and Kelvin Seabrooks was no pushover. I mean, he won a world title. He won a world title, so he did something right. What Orlando Canizales did to make that guy look like an amateur that night speaks volumes to the beauty and greatness of Orlando Canizales. Of course, he was stuck in that pound-for-pound era when guys like Julio Cesar Chavez, Pernell Whitaker, and James Toney were vying for that top spot. But was always in the top 10 list, somewhere in the middle. We consider just the long run he had at bantamweight. I think it's still a record to this day in that weight class. And you're talking about probably a top 10 all-time great in that weight division. Just his skill level, his footwork, his ability to take a punch, his ability to jab, his ability to counter, and his ability to land with precision punches, almost like a poor version of Alexis Arguello almost. I mean, you see a lot of parallels between the two of them. Of course, Arguello is more of a sharpshooter. Canizales put combinations together a little better. But Orlando Canizales was a thing of beauty. And if you guys want a tutorial on how to use your feet, use your hands, use your skills in that ring, and the importance of footwork and setting yourselves to land the right shots, watch Orlando Canizales. He did it a lot throughout his career. I mean, he did it against guys like Billy Hardy, Eddie Rangel, beat up Paul Gonzalez so bad to where Paul Gonzalez cried to Marv Albert after a fight on NBC. That's to tell you just how great Orlando Canizales was, and he certainly was great from 1988 to 1994 when he was the bantamweight champion of the world. 6-year reign that included 16 title defenses. I believe that's still a record. And just a phenomenal bantamweight. Standout fighter, a beauty to watch. And what he did to Kelvin Seabrooks, it was the beginning of that great run in the division. And now the main event, the one I saved tonight for. We're going to go to probably the most wild night in Madison Square Garden history. And we're talking the most wild night. I mean, one sense you want to say you're surprised it happened, but in hindsight, maybe we shouldn't have been. Because what happened to both fighters in and out of the ring, this was a case of tick, 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 boom. And when it went boom, it really went boom. This was 29 years ago at Madison Square Garden, the first fight between Riddick Bowe and Andrew Golota. Well, we know the story to begin with. Riddick Bowe just has his butt handed to him. But the problem was Andrew Golota's handing his butt to him. He was trying to find a way to hand Riddick Bowe's balls to him. And as a result, Andrew Golota gets disqualified in a fight he was winning bigly across his judges' scorecards, even with all the points taken away. And we know what this prompted after the fight, the wild riot inside the ring, among many other things. But this was just the epitome of who Riddick Bowe and Andrew Golota were in and out of the ring for different reasons. let's start with Riddick Bowe. I mean, ever since he lost a gold medal to Lennox Lewis in 1988, I mean, basically just getting there, he was gift wrapped an opportunity because he basically was just lazy. He turned professional. Of course, we know he beat Evander Holyfield in 92. But let's go before that when he fought Elijah Tillery the first time, where there was a neighborhood war and a whole bunch of verbiage was taking place between the two. And after one of the rounds, after Elijah Tillery kicks Riddick Bowe in the thigh, a wild brawl ensues. Fast forward to 1992, when before fighting against Pierre Kutzer, you know the story with South Africa. I won't get too much into the political aspect of it with Nelson Mandela. Him and Rock Newman used that as a platform to try to sell the fight and pin it on Pierre Kutzer. And we know what happened with the Evander Holyfield fight, with that fiasco, the first one. After the fight, Bowe sees Lennox Lewis, says he wants him in the ring, and Lennox Lewis says, bring it on. I'm going to knock you out like I did in the amateurs. So what happens? Riddick Bowe throws the belt in the garbage can to duck Lennox Lewis to fight a 38-year-old Michael Dokes who had no business fighting in the fight game, period. And 7 months after that, we know what happened. He balloons up to 247 pounds, basically just like a overgrown bowling ball with an a head, arm, and legs against an Evander Holyfield, who was driven to regain the championship and just basically gave Bowe a boxing lesson until Fan Man came into the ring. And we know what happened with Fan Man, hanging on the ropes, and the Riddick Bowe posse just took walkie-talkies and smashed him upside the Fan Man's head and caused all kinds of chaos on the ringside. And Riddick Bowe's wife, who was pregnant at the time, basically fainted. And his trainer, Eddie Futch, suffered a shortness of breath where he had needed an oxygen tank just to breathe at that time, because there was a rumor swirling going to Riddick Bowe's camp, going to the second Holyfield fight, that Riddick Bowe's bad habits were starting to catch up to him. Fast forward 14 months, when before the fight against Larry Donald, the sucker punches before the fight, about the week before the fight at the press conference, out of nowhere, the fight against Jorge Luis Gonzalez, where he throws a beer mug, or I think that water mug or a beer mug full of whatever, at Jorge Luis Gonzalez. Reason why I bring all this up, that's the epitome of what Riddick Bowe and his manager Rock Newman were. They were all about the theatrics. They were not about anything else. Now let's flip to Andrew Golota. Basically a street guy out of Chicago. There was a rumor he flew Poland to Chicago because of potential prosecution. Basically got himself in trouble a couple times. Won a bronze medal in the 88 Olympics, something nobody knew. Went to a record of 28-0, largely unknown. Basically just going along, building the record. But he himself had his own run-ins. Go to his fight against Samson Pau'ua on USA's Tuesday Night Fights. Pau'ua has him hurt. Andrew Golota bites him in the neck. You can see a big old hickey right on the side of Pau'ua's neck. And it revealed that they asked Andrew Golota if you bit the guy. Andrew literally told the guy, yep, I bit the MFer. And then a couple fights later, he fights Donnell Nicholson. In a fight, basically, he's dominating Nicholson from start to finish. But in the middle of the fight, as he's dominating Donnell Nicholson, who was still upright, an intentional headbutt by Andrew Golota, and not just a regular headbutt, an intentional headbutt, and down goes Donnell Nicholson off the intentional headbutt. The only thing came out of it was a point deduction. I thought there should have been a disqualification because it was an intentional headbutt. But that's what these two had going into this fight. And we consider that the Polish fan base, who hadn't had a Polish standout athlete like Andrew Golota in quite some time, and of course, Riddick Bowe from Brownsville, New York, the crowd was volatile, and it was later revealed by Mackie Showstone, who was Riddick Bowe's nutritionist. I don't know how the hell you're going to be Riddick Bowe's nutritionist with that weight. Basically saying, no police were in the stands. You didn't see any of them. So that's why we had what was about to come up. Riddick Bowe goes in this fight 253 pounds. It was staring at an 8-figure payday with Mike Tyson had he taken care of business in an all-New York showdown in Madison Square Garden, at least rumor-wise, end quote. But Andrew Golota came in with other ideas. Actually, let's get to the fight real quick before the wild stuff afterwards. Story really of this fight was not just Andrew Golota winning the fight. He was peppering Riddick Bowe with a left jab. I mean, Riddick Bowe was not used to fighting guys who had a left jab like Andrew Golota. And Andrew Golota just owned Riddick Bowe with the left jab for at least the first 3.5, 4 rounds. I mean, Riddick Bowe couldn't even get near the guy. Of course, the left-right combinations that he started to hurt Bowe with looked like he was going to go for a knockout. But then that's when we had all the volatility. The punches below the belt, one of them actually an uppercut version right where Riddick Bowe delivers babies. And Riddick Bowe is in the 3-point stance, grabbing himself down there. Actually, I've seen someone do that at a place before. In that 4-point position on with his hands on his you-know-what. And basically, Andrew Golota's losing points in the process. I don't know. The thing is, Andrew Golota turns and goes up underneath like an uppercut. That didn't help his cause when he tried to go underneath to Riddick Bowe's areas. But while all that's happening, Riddick Bowe is just getting pounded every single which way possible, legally and illegally. And as the Golota was starting to dominate, Riddick Bowe had no answers. But as Riddick Bowe was still just standing there, Andrew Golota just found a way to self-destruct, still aiming below the belt of Riddick Bowe. Lost another point in round 6. One more in round 7 before the final one, where Bowe swings, Golota ducks, throws a left hook right to the that area of Riddick Bowe. Riddick Bowe's on the floor. Andrew Golota's disqualified. And now we have the Donnybrook. Rock Newman, manager of Riddick Bowe, jumps into the ring, screams at Andrew Golota, calls for Jason Harris, who is Riddick Bowe's bodyguard, to go after Andrew Golota. And now Andrew Golota and Jason Harris are in a free-for-all. And Jason Harris takes the walkie-talkie and smashes it on the head of Andrew Golota. And the ring is filled with a whole lot of chaos. And the chaos ensued outside of the ring at Madison Square Garden. And then poor George Foreman, Jim Lampley, and Larry Merchant have to call it. I mean, later Jim Lampley revealed it that Foreman had an arm bar to protect Lampley and Merchant from anything happening, because apparently these guys were jumping over Foreman, Merchant, and Lampley just to get into the ring and be a part of it. I mean, you had guys in the 50s, 60s, and 70s go fighting guys in their 20s and 30s. I mean, you had a 70-year-old Lou Duva out there who out of nowhere just had some kind of a seizure and collapses in the ring. You thought he was dead. That's how wild this was. And basically, and not only did it happen in the ring, it happened outside of the ring, where it was like the equivalent of, you would see some kind of a all-out wrestling brawl, because chairs are being bopped upside the head. And now we have a real wild mess. And there was no, as Becky Shilton said, nobody to put control under this, until the chief of the NYPD at the time said he was at home watching television and saw a news ticker on his television set that there's a riot at Madison Square Garden at the Riddick Bowe Andrew Golota fight. And that's when he called his law enforcement to handle business. Arrests were made. The biggest, and of course, a couple of days later, it was revealed that Riddick Bowe's manager, Rock Newman, was called into the NYPD office for an interview. And it was revealed that he sought out specifically Jason Harris, who was Riddick Bowe's bodyguard, the one who whacked Golota in the head with a walkie-talkie. And it turns out he was the one that got arrested next, and he was in the middle of being investigated, got a 5-year suspended sentence because of it, among many other things. A lot of other sentences there. Don't know all the details, don't know who they are, but still the most wild night in Madison Square Garden history. But this was the epitome of what Riddick Bowe and Andrew Golota were at the end of the day. I mean, volatile personalities in and out of the ring, volatile in terms of how they approach things. Just one of them, both of them had the physical gifts. One of them just had basically a mental, you call it mental laziness. They got someone who had a mental breakdown. Yet this was coming. I mean, I don't know how people could not see it coming. I mean, maybe in hindsight, maybe you should have. But the thing with this fight is, when you look at the career of Riddick Bowe, this is a case of a fighter who basically his 5 minutes of fame were up when he beat Evander Holyfield on the first fight, and basically just no longer gave a darn. I mean, that's why he threw the belt in the garbage can to duck Lennox Lewis. That's why he showed up to this fight 253 pounds and just looked beyond lethargic, even though part of his lethargicness includes him getting whacked in the nuts quite a few times. but it's the epitome of what Riddick Bowe and his manager Rock Newman were all about. And because of all of that, his trainer Eddie Futch, one of the premier trainers in boxing history, one of the all-time brilliant mind trainers who trained guys like Foreman, Shavers, Holmes, and Norton. Excuse me, Frazier, Norton, Shavers, and Holmes told Riddick Bowe, I'm done with you. Because he's seen it coming a long time ago. Because Riddick Bowe just couldn't escape the bad habits and the theatrics that he had earlier in his career. Because when those bad habits carry on from earlier in your career to the point it did for Riddick Bowe, it's going to catch up with you, and it did. Certainly did also for Andrew Golota, because now he was remembered more for this. I mean, both fighters had all the physical talents to be something special, but at the end of the day, neither guy fulfilled it. I mean, one wound up winning the heavyweight championship. The other guy had a couple shots down the line. Of course, it's prompted a rematch 4.5 months later in Atlantic City. And we had the same thing. Riddick Bowe goes into training camp for the rematch, 283 pounds, without Eddie Futch. And I think about nearly 6 weeks, he lost 47 pounds, brought himself down to 235 for this fight. But what nobody knew for the rematch was not only did Riddick Bowe just wasted away and just lost all the weight too quickly, and basically was out of control in training camp, the 3-fight series he had with Evander Holyfield and the walloping he took in the first fight against Golota just added up. Because Golota did the same thing again. Beat him upside the head, knocked him down twice in the second and fifth rounds. But again, Andrew Golota, like the first fight, just could not stay on a straight and narrow. The intentional headbutt in the second round that cost him a point. The low blow in the fourth round that cost him another point. And after that point, Roger Bloodworth, the trainer of Andrew Golota, said Andrew Golota to his face, no more body punches. 1-2 to the head, step around. That's what Andrew Golota had to do. And he did that for the next 3 to 4 rounds. I mean, looked like he was going to finally get over the hump. Floor blow again in the fifth, had him hurt in the sixth and seventh rounds. But in the ninth round, a 3-punch combination below the belt, and Riddick Bowe is down and out, and Andrew Golota is disqualified again. It's not the fact that he's disqualified again. He's disqualified again in the exact same manner he was. Let me back up. Andrew Golota was disqualified in the rematch against Riddick Bowe in the same way he was disqualified the first time. Had the fight under control, did anything and everything he wanted to do, but mentally collapsed. Against the same guy, the exact same way. That is what you have to know about Andrew Golota. Now, the rematch was the end for Riddick Bowe. Of course, his mind was all over the place for the longest time. Tried his luck in the Marines, which didn't last all but a minute. I mean, Riddick Bowe said years later, he wasn't expecting the drill sergeant to be tough on him. What do you expect him to do? Coddle you? I mean, then, of course, later on, Bowe wound up, had all kinds of legal issues outside the ring when it comes to supposedly kidnapping his kids from a deteriorating marriage. Wound up in prison for 18 months. And in that sentencing hearing, they try to use the tough blows he took in his boxing career as a way to change his thinking. Of course, respected pundits like Flip Homansky and Dr. Margaret Guman came out and said, chronic brain injuries is inconsistent behavior, which is what Riddick Bowe had. And of course, a slur of speech. Listen to Riddick Bowe after he beat Evander Holyfield to the interview he had after the second fight against Andrew Golota. That was Riddick Bowe. A case of a fighter who was great enough to get to the high level, and when he wanted to be disciplined, he could be. Problem is, when he went off the discipline, he really went off the discipline and went off the rails. And that's even though he only had the one loss to the second fight against Evander Holyfield, and though he got the rightful disqualification wins against Andrew Golota, Riddick Bowe got basically beat. I mean, he got the wins rightfully so by disqualification because Andrew Golota couldn't keep his hands off Riddick Bowe's nuts. But Riddick Bowe, prime example of fighters who had the physical talent to be something special, but it takes extra discipline to do it. Riddick Bowe did not have that extra discipline to do it. So that was why that took place with the 2-fight series with Riddick Bowe and Andrew Golota. That's why everything happened 29 years ago at Madison Square Garden, probably the most wild night in Madison Square Garden history, when Riddick Bowe and Andrew Golota collided. Of course, Riddick Bowe was staring at a major payday with Mike Tyson in all New York showdown, at least rumor-wise, but came in 253 pounds and just looked lost. I mean, the guy was in the shape. Guy got outworked. Just Andrew Golota couldn't keep his punches up. As you can say, the same for Andrew Golota. Had talent, but up here when it mattered most in the mind, he didn't. That's what it came down to. You know, we see a lot of theatrics in boxing. Pre-fight, after fight. Some of it's theatrics. Some of it is, organic, whatever. There was I'll call this organic theatrics when it comes to the careers of these two fighters, especially Riddick Bowe and his manager, Rock Newman. Because Rock Newman, the way he handled the situation when he threw the belt in the garbage can to duck Lennox Lewis to fight a 38-year-old Michael Dokes, who had no business fighting for any title at that point, is just symbolic of what they were at the end of the day. I mean, had they gone on to fight Lennox Lewis at some point? Sure. I mean, it would have been forgivable. But you can't rewrite history. And the history will always say Riddick Bowe threw the belt in the garbage can to avoid Lennox Lewis simply because he did not want to face the top guys and didn't have the discipline to fight the top guys at that time after he beat Evander Holyfield November 13th, 1992. And as a result, the career was just basically off the rails, just despite his record. There's 2 wins were against Michael Dokes and Jesse Ferguson, and they were corpse at that point. That's all you need to know about Riddick Bowe. The talent was there, had it all, but the bad habits just added on, and we added theatrics of Rock Newman. It was going to be a disaster, and it certainly was. His biggest luck out in the 2 fights against Andrew Golota. Andrew Golota was a bigger disaster than he was because he didn't know how to think straight when times got tough. I mean, he had both fights against Riddick Bowe, won, couldn't keep his punches upright. Just really two very sad days all the way around. I mean, to me, even though Riddick Bowe was the official winner, some people say Andrew Golota was the quote winner end quote because Riddick Bowe was just battered around despite the illegal punches. Everybody lost. I mean, okay. I mean, Riddick Bowe lost because he was done. Andrew Golota lost because he got exposed as a mental midget. The networks lost because they had to see all of this, especially the first fight was just a sad thing, that crazy night at Madison Square Garden. The trainers of both fighters lost, especially Lou Duva, who tried to defend Andrew Golota both times but couldn't. It was just a sad thing all the way around. It was basically 2 guys who had the chance to be something. They never made it. I mean, of course, Riddick Bowe winds up in the Hall of Fame. I don't have a problem with it because I said before, boxing is a different standard when it comes to other sports. But we talk about athletes who couldn't fulfill that potential, especially in the sport of boxing. Riddick Bowe is a poster child. That's what it comes down to. I always alluded to this on some of my shows before when I talk about discipline, getting to that level and maintaining at that level. When you see guys like Bernard Hopkins, when you see guys like Marvin Hagler, you saw guys like Julio Cesar Chavez, you saw guys like Pernell Whitaker, it's because they had the discipline and they treat every fight as if it's their last. And they defended their championships with pride and honor. And when they went into the gym, they were preparing for, the highest battle possible, staying in shape at all times. That's what discipline is in the boxing world. Just a wild night, a sad night, but all the way around. But just symbolic of what Riddick Bowe and Rock Newman were at the end of the day, and everything caught up with them. And Andrew Golota just fell off the rails himself. Had a fights against Michael Grant and Mike Tyson where he quit. Actually wound up getting a couple of title shots out of nowhere against Chris Bird and John Ruiz, even though I thought he beat John Ruiz. You could say his end game was when he was whacked in 1 round by Lamont Brewster, and then eventually in 5 rounds in Poland by Tomasz Adamek. But really, both guys, at the end of the day, were just a pair of sad stories at the end of the day when it comes to their careers. And that'll wrap up this edition of Sirhan on X. I will be back Monday after the weekend. New platform, new things coming up as I divulge into bigger and better platforms. And as always, Make self-care your number one priority in life. You should always take care of yourself first before you take care of anything else. If you don't take care of yourself first, nothing else matters. They always say self-care is health. Yes, it is. Because if you take care of yourself first, all the good things come your way. And that's the only thing that matters at the end of the day. If you don't, nothing else does. For those that misses any of this show or any others of the past, they will be also uploaded to audio versions on the Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, as well as the Spotify apps if you have those on your platforms. Coming soon, more advertisements through the iHeartRadio app. As I look to venture into that platform, you guys can catch me on that platform here real soon. But until then, have a good rest of the night. Take care of yourselves. Enjoy the weekend. I will see you Monday. Take care, and God bless.